Good morning, everybody. As a child, the Feast of the Epiphany was my least favorite feast. Back in India, we went to church in the morning. Next day was school, so we came back after church. And our task was to take down the manger scene, the Christmas star, and the Christmas decorations. I did not like this feast because it meant that Christmas was finally over. Life must get back to normal now. Liturgically, too, Epiphany signals that the Christmas season is about to end. But today, as an adult, I understand this feast differently. Now I look at Epiphany as a way to carry Christmas into the rest of the year. Keeping the context within which we find ourselves today, both in the world and the nation and the church, I want to propose 3 ways in which we can carry Christmas and Epiphany into the rest of the year. So here's my first point. Epiphany literally means manifestation. So it's a celebration of the manifestation or the revelation or the making known of the Christ to the entire world. As Christ is manifested to the world, the question we might ask ourselves is, and why did God become human? The answer is, so that we might become divine. The best way to carry Christmas into the ordinary time is to remember that on the one hand, Christmas is a celebration of God become man. But equally important is that it's a feast of man becoming divine. The Catechism of the Catholic Church puts it this way: the Word became flesh to make us partakers of divine nature. So we share in the nature of God, is what the Catechism is telling us. And this thought has been consistently expressed by the earliest church fathers and later theologians. So for example, St. Irenaeus, who lived in the early 2nd century, says, "For this is why the Word became man, and the Son of God became the Son of Man, so that man, by entering into communion with the Word and thus receiving divine sonship, might become the Son of God." I would hesitate to use that kind of language, but they were not hesitant. That human dignity is elevated to the point of being divine is something the church fathers have taught us. St. Athanasius in the early 4th century said, "For the Son of God became man so that we might become God." And at least the English translation uses the capital G. And again, St. Thomas Aquinas, the great Catholic theologian of the 13th century, wrote, "The only begotten Son of God, wanting to make us sharers in his divinity, assumed our nature so that he, made man, might make men gods." I find this absolutely stunning and very attractive. So I'm proposing that we take this thought into the new year, into the ordinary time. Since that first Christmas, we are no ordinary human beings. We are human and divine. So may our life reflect what Christ has accomplished for us, and if we do, that indeed would be a new epiphany, isn't it? My first point leads to a related practical implication of Christmas and Epiphany. Recognizing the human person as the sacrament of God. On this feast of the Epiphany, I often think about the wisdom and the insight of the Magi, about their humility, their openness, their willingness to be surprised by God. When the star led them on their journey, what did they expect to find? Really, what did they expect to find? They only saw the star, but not what the star was pointing to. What did they expect to find? In fact, like most people would do, they went to look for the Christ at Herod's palace. But he wasn't there. Their search ultimately led them to an ordinary house, not the stable where he was born, but an ordinary house where they found a child with his mother. That's all they saw. They came, they saw, they did him homage. In a vulnerable, powerless, humble human child, they saw the Christ, God. So this has implications for the sacramental life of the church. As Catholics, we understand the power of the sacraments. In fact, we're celebrating one now. However, the broader meaning of the word sacramental refers to any created reality that communicates the divine. So in this sense, creation is a sacramental, as is the crucifix, or this manger, or holy water. More importantly, if we believe that every human person is made in the image and likeness of God, and that God became human so that we might become divine, then every human person too is a sacrament of God. Christmas and Epiphany teach us to treat each other with more respect than we even do the sacramentals. Christmas and Epiphany invite us to be wise and insightful like the Magi. They invite us to humility, to openness, and the willingness to be surprised by God. These feasts call us to treat each other with respect, with dignity, with fear and awe. Black, white, or brown, citizen, immigrant, or undocumented, rich, poor, or in between, a baby in the womb or a child outside the womb, man, woman, or transgender. Every human person is worthy of divine dignity, period. In the most real and honest way, every human person is a sacrament of God. And I propose we take this into the new year because our nation needs it. There is a third implication that today's feast has, and it has serious implications: the relationship between faith and politics. Today's first reading says, "Nations shall walk by your light, and kings by your shining radiance." So nations will walk under the light of God. There is a grave error that we are falling into today. People are choosing to walk in the light of the nation rather than under the light of God. Some have gone even further. Some believe that the nation is the way to God. The Epiphany story holds a great truth, folks, a truth that is easy to overlook. Epiphany exposes the exploitation of religion by the powers that be. See, when the Magi came looking for the king of the Jews, Herod held an audience with the Magi, right? And he told them to let him know when they find this king so that he might go and do homage. He was lying. In reality, he wanted to destroy the child. He was playing political games. At the end of the story, when the angel directed the Magi to leave the country without meeting Herod, the infuriated king unleashed a ruthless political violence against innocent children. There was nothing religious about it. It's all political. Religion has often been used as a tool to wield power over people. So Christmas as an Epiphany have implications for the relationship between faith and politics for us. If you disagree with me on this one, please do it respectfully. I will accept it. But every election year, religion becomes a tool in the hands of the powerful. And that too in this nation, which upholds the separation of church and state. To add to the problem, especially in election 2020, cardinals, bishops, priests, and nuns jumped into the extremely partisan and polarized political arena, thus alienating those who did not share their political affiliation. I believe that when religious representatives become partisan, they compromise the power of the gospel. Faith cannot become subservient to political whims. Faith must inform our politics rather than politics inform our faith. Our faith and our moral choices must be guided by the gospel, not by political ideology. Nations must walk in God's light and not the other way around. And I say this sadly, but the contrary has become mainstream in our country. I have no strategies to turn this around. I have none. I find myself helpless. But at least we should be conscious and intentional that when faith and our religious sentiments are being exploited by others, like the Magi, we need to resist it. The Magi understood this and left Herod's land by another route. It is time for us to take another route. Folks, the highlight of Epiphany is that the Magi offered the child Jesus gifts worthy of a king and Messiah: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Today, let us join them as we offer not just gold, frankincense, and myrrh, but our lives in total homage. For indeed, this is the Christ, the Word made flesh. People of God said,